am I worthy, to make $50,000 on a deal? Like, is it okay to make more than my parents make combined on one deal?
Whoa. Okay, that's
Because
huge.
that
That's
that
huge.
was, that was a big one for us, and um, going into it with kind of an open book, seeing what my coach was doing at the time. Like he was buying, bungalows for 600,000, severing the lot off, not touching the house, and selling the house for 6 and selling the lot for 3.
Welcome to the Deals Estate Wholesaling Podcast, where we discuss finding, financing, and facilitating off-market real estate deals. I'm your host, DJ Dunton, and I'm joined on the show by Sebastian Jania to discuss and share his experience transitioning from an aspiring physiotherapist to a full-time real estate investor. Sebastian is a former aspiring physiotherapist turned full-time investor based out of the Kitchener area. He's been in the real estate space since 2021. He currently runs a wholesaling business with his partner Ayesha, and that wholesaling business is called the Jania Group. Jania Group is focused on providing investors with off-market real estate deals, and to date, they've done about 18 deals, both wholesaling and flipping. In today's episode, Sebastian and I discuss how he made the switch from being an aspiring physiotherapist to being a full-time real estate investor today, the acquisition strategies that he uses today to source off-market deals, and how he is monetizing his relationships with his power team to get deals done in today's market. So guys, you do not want to miss this episode. It's going to be fantastic. Now, before we dive in, we want to say a big thank you to everyone who is listening to this podcast. If you are a fan, please hit the like, subscribe, or notification buttons. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hi, Sebastian. Welcome to the Deals Estate Wholesaling Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Deji. Happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on. It's been a long time coming, and I'm really honored to have you here, man. How are things going with you?
Good, good. I just got off a seller call just before this, so things are good.
Yes, so if it wasn't a seller call that you were on, like which call should you be on? On a holiday like this. Oh man, but yeah, it's really exciting to have you here, and I'm more excited for the conversation that we're going to have. Primarily because when we spoke the first time, we spoke for about, I would say, 40 minutes, and I remember thinking then, why didn't we just record that call? That would have been the perfect podcast episode because we dropped so many bombs during that conversation. Now we have to rehearse or just say everything all over again. But, again, it's exciting that you are here today, and I know that there's going to be a lot of value dropped today, man.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, getting into this, we usually start off by asking you to introduce yourself. Who is Sebastian? Can you share with us your experience with real estate, how you got here, and what motivated you to pursue this niche in real estate?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep this somewhat short. So my name is Sebastian Jania. Like Deji mentioned, I'm at a Kitchener, primarily wholesaling at this point. I got into real estate because I was kind of traveling abroad, and I was doing a lot of Tony Robbins' events.
Oh,
And
nice.
I got around some really great people who showed me really what's possible outside of kind of the sphere that I was in. And so I met a ton of people who were doing development, who had a big rental property portfolios, some people who are wholesaling out in Texas. Um, and I just saw the life that they had created for themselves. But for me, initially, I was thinking, well, how am I going to buy these properties to flip or to have as rentals? At the time, I was like teaching online English out of my bedroom, and I was like, how am I gonna, how am I gonna do this? And I came back to Canada after being abroad for a bit under a year, and
Okay.
just started to kind of research how could I get into real estate? Where could I learn from? Because my biggest thing was that it's an expensive business to make mistakes in. It's not a $99 startup fee or something like that. Like
Yeah.
it's hundreds of thousands to try it out essentially. And so I found at that point I found Black Card University out of Winnipeg, and connected with some people there. Did due diligence on a couple different companies and options at that time,
Okay.
and then I started to work with a coach one on one from there who kind of showed me the ropes on acquiring deals, different strategies, different exit strategies on those different properties, and that's kind of where things where we like set the foundation.
Okay.
It started raising capital, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, nice. So I wasn't actually aware that you went to Black Card. I believe you are probably the second Black Card alumni on the podcast. Did you start sponsoring this podcast? But that's great, man. So how was your experience at Black Card?
Good, good. One of the I think for me, I just went super, super deep into it.
Yeah.
Later on, I ended up being on their sales team and closing, coaching students and things like that. But
Nice.
um, the reason why I say that is that I realized afterwards that for so many people, it's just a mindset thing.
Yeah.
Like I personally think that even if a program is just okay, if the people going into it have the right mindset, they'll make any program
The best
work.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found that there were a lot of people who were coming through that were not mentally ready
Got
to
it.
be, raising hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to purchase projects. And there was their mindset that was getting in the way. It wasn't capital to get into a program that was getting in the way. It was just a mindset thing.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
so
So that's a very interesting concept. And are you able to maybe break it down for us? So, when you say like there's a mindset block, to raising millions of dollars in deals or in capital for deals, like where do you see that a lot of investors have that limiting belief? Is it because of the sheer amount that they are raising, or is it because they don't have confidence in the deal itself?
okay, I hate to say both, but kind of both. So I guess what okay, I'll try to cover a couple things, but the
Okay.
for me the biggest thing was that before joining that program, I was doing so much of the Tony Robbins stuff
Okay.
abroad. And
Okay.
so much of that was working through money limiting beliefs, the kind of lives that we can create for ourselves. And so when I jumped into the program, I was like, just mind fully open to take in whatever and just run with it, not second guessing myself, um, just doing it.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
found that for a lot of other people who are going through the program, and I mean, same thing, whatever program it happens to be, is that am I worthy, to make $50,000 on a deal? Like, is it okay to make more than my parents make combined on one deal?
Whoa. Okay. That's
Because
huge. That's
that
huge.
was, that was a big one for us, and um, going into it with kind of an open book, seeing what my coach was doing at the time. Like he was buying, bungalows for 600,000, severing the lot off, not touching the house, and selling the house for 6 and selling the lot for 3, and just rinsing and repeating over and over. And I was like, shit, the guy spent a couple hours and a couple conversations with the committee of adjustments making that kind of money, which for most people in a middle class family, that's years. That's
Yep.
years of salary.
Yep.
Um, and for many people, I think it seems too easy. And those limiting beliefs of not being worthy, or what if the deal goes wrong? What if I lose the money? Um, all those things kind of come up, and so people just don't take any action.
Oh, wow. I see it. That's actually a very, very interesting perspective. You mentioned something else as well about, you know, real estate is not a cheap, like it's not a cheap industry where you don't, it's not like it's 99. cents or dollars to start. I wanted to touch on that because I know there's quite a number of people, or there's schools of thoughts that, wholesaling is your typical entry strategy. You need $0 down to start. What are your thoughts on that? Given that narrative versus the reality of running a wholesaling business.
I would agree, and I mean my approach now is if I were to do everything all over again, I would have strictly done bird dogging and wholesaling, gotten very good at that before touching a rental property or
Okay.
a flip. And I think there was such a rush of emotions in the marketplace over the last 2 years where it's like, well, skip the fundamentals because the
Yeah.
market's going to keep going up and you're going to miss out. But messing up one of those deals, in an
It
up
set you back.
bar, exactly. And for a lot of people, messing up one of those will make them lose all their life savings. Because if you buy a house for 500,000 with 100,000 down, and that house, like we see now, a year later is worth 4, you lost your life savings.
True. Very
And
true.
and for a lot of people, that's going to be at that point they'll decide, well, real estate isn't for me. I should move on to something else. I should, I don't know, open up a Shopify store or something where it costs me, $30 a month to do that, rather than stepping back and saying they just never understood the fundamentals.
So I love that because there's one thing that I believe as well, right? That the skill that you build doing bird dogging or wholesaling, that is a very transferable skill across your real estate, like your real estate journey. Because as you said, being able to find good deals, knowing how to find good deals, especially in a market like this, is super valuable. So sometimes I usually can't reconcile why there's some schools of thought that don't do wholesaling, or wholesaling is just like entry strategy when you don't have money. Whereas, to your point, that's the strategy that gives you or provides you with the right fundamental knowledge of how to find good deals, how to identify good deals, how to analyze good deals, and how to buy good deals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's a narrative which I don't necessarily like agree with, but there's also what you and I are speaking about here, which I believe is actually more of the truth. Like if you start off with wholesaling or product again, then you know what a good deal is, you know what a bad deal is, and when you're ready to start doing flips, you're ready to start doing hotels, you're ready to start buying rentals, you are able to really filter out what a good deal is versus what a bad deal is, and not get swayed by what your coaches are doing, or what your friends are doing, or what your peers are doing on social media. So just wanted to call that out as something that
Yeah,
also resonates with me.
yeah. I think the other thing too is that with something like wholesaling, if you're building up that strong active income and I'll probably touch on this a little bit later, that if a flip happens to go bad, okay, 1, 2 wholesale deals and I'm back in. But if you don't have the wholesaling skill and you mess up a flip, for most people it's going to be, okay, how many months or years at my job do I need to work to make this money back?
Yeah, sure.
That's, yeah.
Okay, so these few minutes, the bombs that have been dropped alone, like everyone should be downloading this episode as soon as it's out, man. Um, so thanks for sharing that. I wanted to find out from your standpoint. So in getting to where you are right now, um, you mentioned that you did a lot of traveling. Like you also shared that like, you were poised to go into another field, but you moved into real estate. I just wanted to get your thoughts on how that transition happened. How you started off in your first line of like your first field, and how you essentially moved into real estate.
Yeah, so um, I want to make sure I answer the question. I'm trying to think how to. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that?
Okay, so we had spoken about how before real estate, you were looking to be a physiotherapist, and
Yes.
now you are a full-time real estate investor, which isn't usually a transition that we hear every single day. Moving from wanting to be in the medical field, to being a real estate investor. So I just wanted to understand like your thought process with when you were looking to be a physiotherapist? There's usually, again, the narrative of, okay, when you're in the medical field, you make this much money, this is the best field to be in,
Yeah.
your active income is going to be
Yeah.
through the
Yes.
roof.
Yeah.
And then you let that go for, like wholesaling, real estate, active income on this side. So when you think through the active income of being in the medical field, if you had continued on that path
Yeah.
versus the active income on the real estate side and just the upside, being in the real estate space, how do you sort of marry those two industries? How do you think through the transition?
Okay.
Looking back, would you have done anything differently? Just wanted to get your
Okay.
thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of the biggest motivators for going abroad and doing other things, was that I was looking at physiotherapy, and
Okay.
as much as I liked the idea of helping people in that way, and I was getting a lot of encouragement from some of the people at the clinics that I was working at and volunteering with that I'd be good at. Um, but for me, I kept looking at what is the upside,
Yeah.
and the upside was probably, I don't know, 60, 70, $80,000 a year.
Oh, for
And
real?
yeah,
Okay.
some people, if people get higher credentials, like there's certain certifications that they can do, well then, they can obviously make more. But for me, I was more focused on, let's run the clinic.
Got
Like
it. Okay.
how many clinics am I gonna need to have to make the money that I want to make?
Okay.
Um, and I think when I was looking at it from that way, I'm like, well, why use the vehicle of physiotherapy if I'm gonna need to work in this field for so many years to learn the skills to then be a leader that can run a clinic and then scale clinics? I'm like, that's so far away.
Got it. Okay.
Um, and But I also wanted to find a way where I'd be able to have an impact. Like I know people talk about helping sellers off market and this and that, but I think we go way, way further um, than a lot of people. I think that a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to touch on some of that stuff a little bit later as well.
Yeah, we'd
Um,
love to hear that. Okay. So this is very interesting because you touched on something and you said the vehicle of physiotherapy. And I think this is something that for me, I usually like love to speak about, in the sense that ultimately real estate is a vehicle to achieve your goals, right? Yes, some people love real estate. Some people love buildings. Like when they see a building, oh, I love this building. Like it's the building they love, which in some cases might not necessarily be, the right approach. But a lot of people don't necessarily love the buildings. They just love the fact that real estate is a vehicle to get them to where they want to get to. And, it seems like that's what you touched on, where you were like, you were looking to be an aspiring physiotherapist. That was going to be a vehicle for you to reach a certain goal or, a certain lifestyle that you wanted to achieve. But you figured with real estate, that would probably get you there faster. So it was less about the fact that, okay, um, I love real estate or I love physiotherapy. It was just more about which of these would probably be a better way for me to
mhm.
get to where I want to get to.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, that's actually quite interesting. Like for me, I have like a tech background, and when I came into the country 2020, that was the COVID year, and you know I haven't left the tech space because like there's significant upside there in building startups, which I've done in the past. But with real estate, like for me, the thinking process it wasn't about, okay, I'm going to leave tech and I'm going to do real estate, but it was more around the fact that the real estate industry provided me with a lot of experience and skill set that I didn't have at the time.
Mhm.
So I felt, okay, this was going to be complementary for me, to not only, be in an industry where there's outsized returns, when you're able to build a startup and exit, but also just the skill sets that you learn by being an experienced real estate investor, like things like financial literacy, being
Mhm.
able to like just like analyze deals and,
Mhm.
build passive income and whatnot, and also be able to build active income. So, for me, it was more around complementing the skill set that I had already built in the tech space and just, complementing that with real estate investing.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. So I wanted to dive into like, so now that you are doing wholesaling, um, from your standpoint, like I know a lot of people have like good and bad experiences. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on one good experience you've had. So maybe like a wholesale deal that you've done that's you probably tick a lot of the boxes in terms of, okay, this is a good deal, and how that was structured, why you liked the deal, and then on the flip side, like a deal that just either went sour or like it was just a painful, painful
Okay, yeah,
wholesale.
go on. Go.
So would love to hear,
Okay.
both sides, because
Yeah, yeah,
everyone talks about like the wins. Oh, I
yeah,
wholesale this for this amount, but I think it's
yeah.
helpful to share the highs and also share the annoying parts that, what,
Yes,
man, I hate this.
yes, yes. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, would love to
Okay.
hear that.
Yeah. I would say if I'm gonna think of a deal that went, that went really well. We had one. This was end of last year, beginning of this year in
Yep.
Windsor. Um, we got this one on Kijiji, and this lady was like looking to sell all this stuff and my house too. And
Did she
so,
list it on the house section, or did she?
no, no,
No.
yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. So
Okay, I see where this is.
yeah, and I'm like, okay, like taking a look at it, and I'm like, okay, I'm curious to see what this house is like. And
Okay.
I call her up, and I think she was asking 250.
Okay.
I know the comps. I think we're about I want to say like 290-ish,
Okay.
like as is, and then an ARV of just under 400. So I'm like
Okay.
250 as an asking. That's not bad. Let's see what
Yep.
we can do. And talked with her more. She started sharing that there's a lot of stuff at the property. I'm pulling it up on Google Maps, and I'm like, lawn covered in shit, backyard covered. Like,
Ding ding
okay,
ding
look.
ding 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 ding.
Yeah. And I call her up, and she's like, I gotta be out of here in 4 weeks because
Whoa.
I've accepted a job out in
Ah.
Nova Scotia. So house needs a lot of work. Accepted a job, needs to get out. She's accepted the job. I think I offered her like 175. Um,
Brutal,
she
bro. Brutal. That's brutal.
And then and then she's like, I had 2 calls with her. She was going like, no problem, like yes, yes, yes. And I get a little bit scared sometimes when a seller's not giving me any resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen? And then she texts me, she's like, can we do 185? And I'm like, no, like it's just still a good deal, still a good deal. Um, and I talked to her on the phone. I'm like, you know what? My underwriting team said it has to be 175. We can do 185 if you give me a VTB.
Okay.
Because I was like, I can probably, sell it for a little bit more with a VTB. And she's like, and she kind of went back and forth. And eventually she's like, no, you know what? I want the money now. So she took the 175. So I offered her more money, but again, with my terms.
Okay.
And then she agreed to 175. I think we sent it out for 225. Got a sight unseen offer at I think 217. So it was
Okay.
like, and the best part, we were in Bermuda at the time, like going back and forth with the buyer, with the seller, and it was just cool to be abroad and working the deal. Um,
Okay. So let me get this straight. You meet someone online. Okay, I want to sell this comb. But you know what? I want to sell my house as well. Like that's a super random. You know, I'm like, how does that happen, man? Like that is just tripping me up. But congrats, man. So
yeah.
doing that deal while you're on vacation, like again, just speaks to like the upsides of doing wholesaling, which
Mhm.
I know would obviously excite everyone,
Yes.
with all those buzzwords. So thanks for sharing that. Now, again, we usually always want to hear, the not so interesting sides, just to
Yeah.
keep the balance. So on the flip side, if you have any annoying deal that either went south or maybe it even went over the line, but it was so painful, like it just gives you all the gory details of wholesaling, what would that deal be?
Yeah. So we had one in Timmins, I think last year, and seller reached out to us through our website. We started talking with her, and in Timmins, it's very difficult to sometimes get comps. A
Okay.
lot of the agents don't want to share comps. It's kind of a closed board, and so I'm going off of the what was it? I think I was going off of the assessed value or something.
Okay.
And then I could only see one or two houses that had sold. And so I thought my ARV was like 140 or something. And then I gave the seller an offer at like I think 80,000, and she fucking sorry, I shouldn't be swearing on here.
I'm not
She
gonna edit that out. I'm not gonna edit it out. Don't worry.
and
It's-
she flipped at me because she's like, my dad bought it for 83 like 40 years ago.
oh my god.
and 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 I'm like, well, she's like, no, it has to be worth more than that. And I'm like, I don't see anything else that has sold.
40
And so
years, bro.
I offered her less, and then I finally found an agent who comped it for me, and he's like, no, you can probably get like 250 fixed up.
Oh, man. I want to hear the end of this because, bro,
Okay.
there are stories of people miscomping properties, and then when you assign it, the person that buys it just makes a killing, and you're like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. Yeah. So he's like 250 if you add the third bedroom. And so I came back to the seller. I'm like, sorry, I got all my numbers wrong. I think we ended up locking it up for like 119.
Okay.
Assigned it, I think, for 145.
Okay.
Um, and what at that point we're like, we're always gonna get proof of funds. If someone is truly closing in cash,
Okay.
you should have no problem sending me, a bank statement or something like that.
Okay.
And the guy does. He's like, I got the cash for it. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be an easy deal. Closing, no problem. I think 1 week before the closing, he's like, I don't have the cash anymore.
What?
I reach out to Calvert. Calvert's like, well, we're not lending in Timmins anymore.
Yeah, they said
Uh,
that. Oh man.
it was like at that exact time. And I'm like, okay, so how are we gonna get this funded? And then I think he got some other lender, and it was just dragging on. And the seller calls me, and she's like, "Well, I've already taken insurance off of the house, because
Oh.
this deal is supposed to be closed." And I told her that Calvert didn't like the deal because they said the roof was sagging. And so this seller, she's freaking out. She's like, "My roof is sagging. It's got no insurance on it."
Whoa.
Freaking out on me, and so we're like, how do we settle this person down? And this buyer's just MIA. We don't know how they're funding it still. We send the seller flowers to Timmins to try to calm her down,
Man.
and it ended up dragging on for 3 weeks.
Whoa.
And she was just super super pissed, and we're like, we're never working with these buyers ever again. Everyone, like, hear it from us, don't work with, just like, because again, like, the seller looks at them as an extension of us, and
Very
we
true.
and I would rather take less money on a smooth deal
100%.
than the amount of stress that came with that. And this was, I think that was our second, our second wholesale deal at that point. And so we're just like, this is not worth it. Wholesaling sucks. Uh, but then obviously the other ones started to get better.
Oh wow, like man. So the deal didn't close or like
Not initially. It ended up closing. Yeah.
okay. So but it took about 3 weeks. It dragged that far.
After. Yeah.
So was it the same buyer that ended up closing, or was it someone
Yes.
else? Okay.
Same buyer.
Okay.
Because he was the only one that was willing to go sight unseen. I think we had
Okay.
four other buyers. Everyone wanted an inspection.
Oh, I
And this
see. Okay.
guy's like, I got cash to close. I'll give the deposit you want. So checked all
Everything
our
you want to
boxes.
hear, everything you want to hear, like all the right things, all the right words. It tingles your ear. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, this thing's gonna close early.
Yeah, man, I could close tomorrow. Let's go. Oh man. So that's actually very interesting because like I don't wholesale in Timmins. Like the areas where I wholesale are areas where like caveats would fund. So like the times that has happened to me, and I've shared it on the podcast many times. Like I have a broker, and I always shout him out on the scores. I mean, his name is Kenny from the film dating. I've had these situations in 2 cases, and whenever they happen, I just call Kenny. I'm like, hey, please, like, please, man, like, it looks like the buyer is having issues. What can we do? And in those 2 cases, he's come through with like backup financing, probably from Carvet or from another lender. The first one was like another lender; it wasn't Carvet. That was actually interesting because that lender, he got the lender to waive the appraisal requirements.
Lucky.
Like it was unbelievable because I think it was going to close like a day after, and we got the lender to like fund, like I agreed to fund without doing appraisal, and
Nice.
they pushed the appraisal to after they closed. It was just a weird. So it happened twice. So I can completely relate to to that experience. And it just makes it harder if any of those deals were in Timmins, because now it's like, okay, one of the bigger lenders is not funding there, so it just makes it harder to get someone to fund. Okay.
Yeah, we had to wait like a week for an appraisal because they needed a different lender, and it was just like seller freaking out, and not fun.
Okay, man. I can't really describe the experience, when you have a wholesale deal that you're expecting it to close, and then there's a possibility that it doesn't close. Like that feeling, that experience is like, man, like what am I going to do now that's going to get me my check? Okay. So, through the good, through the bad, in today's markets, like what are your thoughts, today, or like how are you like still looking for wholesale deals today? Like what strategies are you using today?
Well, this is like acquisition strategies.
Yeah, acquisition strategies.
For us, pretty much everything comes through our website.
Okay.
So we have started to run Facebook ads, I think last week. We had one of our biggest deals through Facebook ads last year, but then the company, just the quality started to drop.
Yeah.
Like big time. So we stopped them. And this year we're like, you know what, let's add it again. But we find through our website we have some of the best leads because they're looking for us.
Yeah.
They're not seeing an ad, there's no interruption marketing, there's no flyer.
High intent.
It's how to sell my house for cash, or who buys houses for cash. And then they see us, and now, they go through our website, they understand from our website that we don't pay top dollar, and then they have essentially qualified themselves. So, there's no one yelling at me for giving a lowball offer because they're expecting a lowball offer.
Got it. So that's actually very interesting because, like, to your point, like some of the other strategies like flyers, ads, it's outbound, right? Like you are prospecting and asking them to reach out to you. So they're probably getting your ads, in their comfort zone. They probably were not looking to sell when they got your ad. Then they call you, hey, I got your flyer. I just want to find out what this is about. So you have to do a bit of filtering, to actually get the person who is ready to call. And in some cases, I know with flyers, when you send out the flyer today, in some cases, someone will call you in 6 months. Maybe they were not ready when they got it.
Yeah.
But the point you make is it resonates with me so strongly because you are correct. Like with like websites, like someone is actually going to search. I'm looking for someone that can buy my house for cash. So it's like I'm already qualifying myself, to your point.
Yes.
And then if on your website it's like, hey, bro, I'm not giving you like top dollar, I'm giving you like half or something, and they're like, you know what, I'm still going to take it. And then they call you again, and then they call you again. You're like, okay, you looked for me, you found me. I told you I wasn't going to pay you top dollar. You called me. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to give you like 10 cents on the dollar. But that's actually very, very insightful. So do you think like websites, are probably better than other, like acquisition channels, or what are your thoughts, with respect to like websites, social media, flyers, just from
it kind of comes down, I think there's a lot of things that to consider. So if some if someone's thing is I want a deal tomorrow,
Yeah.
then a website is probably not going to be the right fit,
Yeah.
because it takes months and months, for some people even years, to get high enough in Google that someone is even going to consider you. Because
True.
if you're number 4 on Google, you're probably getting no leads.
Zero.
Yes, if you're number 3, you're probably getting 20% of the leads. If you're number 1, you and you alone are probably getting 50% of the leads.
Got it.
And then but if the thing with ranking on Google is that, again, I don't know when my next lead is going to come. Just like with flyers, you don't know, is your deal 6 months from now or tomorrow. And that's the thing with flyers that I like. We don't do them, but what I like about them is that I can ask everyone in the neighborhood that question tomorrow: do you want to sell your house?
True. And then
But
you get a
for
response immediately. Boom. If you want to sell, call me.
Yes. And not everyone, not everyone is going to Google sell my house for cash. They may get a flyer at the right point and just like, this is a sign from the universe or something that I should do this, and they call you up.
True.
And they may never even know I exist, because to find out about us, you have to go online.
True.
And a lot of the other companies who are also ranked well in Google, I mean, they do also Google ads, they do flyers, they want to get them from every angle, because Google alone is not going to get you everyone.
True.
I think it's the cheapest source of quality traffic.
That's long term.
Yes,
Long term.
that's long term.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very interesting angle. Like for me, I've always wanted to get to a point where like I'm marketing across multiple channels. So you hit the nail on the head. Doing Google ads, consistently doing social media ads, consistently doing flyers. You're doing like just different acquisition channels. Because the truth is, like to your point, you just don't know, which channel resonates with the seller. Right? The seller might say, okay, I want to work with you because I saw your flyer, or
Yeah.
because I see your flyer every month.
Yeah.
So okay, that to me is credibility. For some people, they're like, you know what, this flyer guys, I hate when they send me flyers. It's like spam. They're spamming my life. I don't want to hear from them. But I see a nice looking website, I want to go with those guys. So it's like if you're doing all of them, then you're able to get that upside.
Agreed.
Okay, so that's on the acquisition side. On the disposition side, and again, in a market like today, the disposition side becomes more interesting because with how the market has slowed down, not every buyer who used to buy before is able to buy now. And buyers also have shifting criteria now. So, how do you sort of handle disposition today? And what's your general sentiment today of, how the buyer market is, what do you think is changing? How do you think it has changed? And just like how you're navigating that.
Okay. So for one of the things, like we have one right now in Simcoe that, we'll have assigned tomorrow, and that the buyer, one of them came through a mortgage agent, and
Okay.
the other buyer came through one of the agents that we refer a lot of our sellers to.
Oh,
So
nice.
not Facebook groups, not
Buyers
email.
list.
Exactly. So I think that's one of the biggest things now is that all these Facebook groups had so many people in them because, flipping houses a year ago was super sexy, and now it's not so sexy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the people in the groups are now just almost like window shopping. They see the deal. It'd be cool to flip this deal, but I don't have the money. I don't have the money. I'm scared,
It'll
or
be
whatever.
cool. It'll be cool. Yeah, it'll be cool, but we want to make money as well.
But so I think a lot of the people in the groups are not necessarily that qualified.
Yeah.
But what I do think is that there are people out there who none of us know about who have been flipping for the last 10, 15 years that are not in groups, that are not on a buyer's list, but an agent knows them.
Got it. Okay.
Like one of the guys who put in an offer on our deal, he's flipped, I think 150 houses, but he's nowhere to be found on social media, online, nothing. So unless you know the agent who is feeding him the discounted deals, no one's going to find him. And so that's why I think agent relationships, but finding the agents who have their, back pocket full of people who are looking for discounted properties, those relationships are more important than ever, because now if you have 10 agents who have 10 cash buyers, you don't need 100 people on your list, you just need the 10 hungry agents.
Mm.
And I think agents are more hungry than ever now, just like
Yeah,
wholesalers,
yeah.
to get a deal done. And
Okay.
and I think too that the other thing with that is that agents have cash buyers too. I think people forget that someone buys the ugly house on the MLS and they're not paying, RBC Bank.
Yeah.
They're they're going cash.
Yeah.
And so why seek out individual connections when you can get 10, 100, 1,000 agents who have shown to you that they have cash buyers, and now you don't need a buyer's list of 10,000, because your list of 1,000 agents might have 50,000 potential buyers.
That is that's sick to hear. Like, I love that because and you are correct. You could have a buyers list of individual buyers, or you could have a buyers list of realtors who, by extension, have their own buyers list. Because
Yeah.
the same way you as a wholesaler would have maybe buyers list of like 100, 1,000, 10,000, realtors are the original OGs. Like, those
Yes.
guys have a list, and their list is not like 100. Their list is like in thousands. So to
Yeah.
your point, if you get one realtor pushing your deal to their list, you could potentially be 10xing your reach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And especially if they deal with investors that are looking to flip deals, because
Yeah.
now those realtors know that the relationship with wholesalers is super valuable for them, because these realtors, they're like, well, where do I find a deal 100,000 or 80,000 under market value?
Yeah.
Maybe I mean, they exist on the MLS for sure. You can flip deals on the MLS, but I think that they're going to be super motivated to work with us, but not
Yeah.
the turnkey agents. Obviously, those
First time
aren't
home
those.
buyers.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, that's interesting to to talk through. Like, I agree with that. Like, for us, like, agent relationships, as we discussed, right, has always been something that I respect. And I've had quite a number of agents on the podcast. There was a particular episode where we highlighted like 5 different ways wholesalers and realtors can make money together.
Mm.
And I don't know that wholesalers and realtors work together extensively. If they do, that's fine. But like, I agree with you. Like, I think there's way more value in collaborating with agents than the narrative, is made it has made it out to be, right? Which is, okay, wholesalers and realtors are sort of competing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, don't work with them, or there's some rule against working with wholesalers. I think there's some collaborative upside. Okay, so we are nearing the end of the episode. I wanted to find out, like, with what today, right? With like real estate investing, wholesaling, um, if you had to do this again, and I know you sort of touched on it earlier in the episode, but with what today across, like, when you started, where you are now, the good, the bad, um, if you had to start wholesaling again today, like, what would you change? What would you do more of? What would you do less of?
So I don't think I wouldn't have changed that much. I think that the one main thing I would have done is I would have been wholesaling sooner
Okay.
and not going so much into taking on flip projects or rentals. I would have just wholesaled right from the start and then worked into that a little bit more slowly, rather than having kind of wholesaling as like a second thought that we just happened to stumble upon later on in our journey.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it would have made it, yeah, would have made a lot of things simpler.
yeah. So I want to touch on this because, like, I also know that there's a lot of coaches, and and to your point, like, the norm is, wholesaling, like, keep the best, wholesale the rest, type of mentality, where you should actually be looking for stuff to buy, and then if it doesn't fit your criteria, then you wholesale. So as you rightly pointed out, wholesaling at that point is like a second thought. It's like, okay, I want to buy it, but if maybe I have too many projects on the go, then I
Mhm.
wholesale. And I know a lot of people that have started their wholesaling business based off of that. Okay, they were buying properties, they had a bunch that they wholesaled. And oh, okay, I'm actually making money from this. Let me. So, are you saying from your standpoint, that's obviously one way to go, but there's a world where it's probably more optimal to just focus on one thing, which is wholesaling, build that skill set, and then use the snowball effect from that to actually then get into flips and rentals.
Yeah, exactly. Like using wholesaling as a way to stack up a lot of cash so that you're kind of insulated when you jump into the next thing, which might be a flip.
Yeah,
Um, you're now insulated. Should things go wrong, then you have some cash, but you've also developed the skill of getting good deals, so the chances of things going wrong
yeah,
diminishes as well the more wholesales you do. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that the more someone wholesales, the better flipper they will become, just by
Uh,
sheer fact that they know what a exceptional deal looks like. But people who jump into flipping right away might take on an average deal because they don't know what does that exceptional deal look like,
look
or
like.
yeah. And I yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing I would say there.
Okay. Yeah, I wish there was like a mic that I could just like physically literally like drop it. Boom, mic drop. Okay, man. So, that brings us to the end of this episode. But as you know, as I mentioned to you, there's usually another question that we ask before the end of the show, which is, it's our question of the show, what's your greatest L in real estate is. And like I know you shared that wholesale deal that didn't, really didn't go well. But hopefully that's not your greatest L, right? So if you have like a greatest L, would be great to share and
Yeah.
what you learned from it.
Yeah, so the greatest L would be we had a property that we purchased in Cambridge, and thinking that it was a duplex, and we closed it to find out that it was not a legal duplex. Um, and so that's the start of it. And we were so we were, but I mean, there's some good things and bad things in the story. So, um, first of all, it was all comped wrong.
Okay.
So there were not many duplexes, and so the closest duplex was almost a little bit outside of the city.
Okay.
And because I didn't have the wholesaling skills, I used that as a comp, thought I could get that as an ARV. We started the work on it January 2022. So just just as we were ready for the ride down, the project dragged on for I think 8 months, and it was flipping, like flipping a duplex, essentially. And so it ended up selling for much less than the expected ARV, like significantly less. The renos went, I think, 50,000 over budget, and the
Oh.
holding and the holding cost, holding time was 8 months instead of expected, I think, 4. Um, but on a good note, I got to share this story because it's so crazy. Um, so we tried to figure out how we could get it to a duplex.
Okay.
And I think and this I think saved us from an even deeper loss. So I reached out to the city. I'm like, on Geo, I think it was on Geo, it shows the duplex. City records, it's not a duplex. I
I,
talked with
I
the
hate I,
city.
I hate when that happens. It's
Yeah,
it's so
and
annoying.
and and, and so I talked with the city. I'm like, but in Geo it shows the duplex, and they're like, well, in 1987 we had a flood. We had a flood in Cambridge, so all the records are gone.
Oh, oh my god.
And so I was like, well, how can you say this is not a duplex? And
Oh, you use that to your advantage?
yeah, and then so we I probably spent 2 months going back and forth. I'm like, so what do I need to show you to make this a duplex? And they're like, so are there two sets of meters? No. Is there firewall separation? No. Um, one of Dude, this is the freaking craziest thing. And this is why, to me, it is the biggest L monetarily, but you'll see it in a sec. And they're like, there's 5 different ways you can prove that it is a duplex. We need 2 of those. And
Oh,
one of them was that you can show that it was rented as 2 units in the past. So
okay,
we found listings from like the year 2000, which talked about an upper and a lower unit, and I used that.
okay,
And
okay,
then, but that was the only one I could figure out of the 5. And they're like, you need to show 2. So then they're like, well, the other thing you can do is you can get what's called an affidavit
okay.
from someone who has lived there before. And I'm like, okay, well, how the hell am I going to find who's lived there before? I call up the one of the old agents. I think they're out of business, so they were useless. So, dude, the craziest thing, I talk with the city and they're like, go to the library,
Man,
go into the directories, see if you can find someone who lived there before.
in the
And
library?
there's a directory that shows you who lives at whatever property
Oh,
in we're talking in like 1970, because they lost the records, so you had to prove that it was a
w-
duplex prior to 1980.
will the person even be alive? It's like,
Dude, this is the craziest part. So I go to the library. I I took all the directories 1970, 71, 72 up to 80. And I'm like, I can't find a single person. One of them, there's a name and a phone number. And so I tried calling everyone. All the phone numbers are disconnected. One guy picks up. I can't remember what his name. Kevin. He picks up. I call the phone number and it connects. I find the guy in Yellow Pages. He lives down the street from that property. Lived there 50 years ago. When
whoa!
yeah. And so I call him up. I'm like, hey, is this Kevin who used to live at, this property? He's like, yeah, I live down the street. I used to live there. Next day, I meet up with the guy. I show him the house. He's like, yeah, this is where my wife and I lived, and upstairs. They used to have another unit up here. He goes with me to Carson Law the next day to sign the affidavit. I get the second piece. The city approves it as a duplex, and we sell it as a duplex on the market.
Okay, this has got to be one of the most interesting stories I've heard because, there's a few things that stick out to me, man. A lot of people don't know what goes on in getting a deal to the finish line. I think we can safely say that because chances are that if you go on social media, you're going to say, I bought this for this price, I sold for this price, I made this amount.
Yeah.
But man, bro, like you look for someone on the Yellow Pages and you got the person to go into a law firm to sign an affidavit for you so that you could just sell the property and you did that for 2 to 3 months. The holding cost on that alone is like burning through your pockets.
Yeah. But I know if I couldn't get it recognized as a duplex, I'd probably sell it for 100 grand less.
Jeez.
So it was like I need to get this done somehow. Um, and so yeah, the guy shows up at the law firm with me. I bought him a lunch. He was like, "Yeah, I'm happy to do this."
Man.
And it is
Just
just
a lunch? You should have bought him like
no. After, dude, we went to his house afterwards, and he has thousands of trains, like little trains driving around.
Yeah,
So we were gonna buy him one that's like a collector's edition or something, because
nice. I love that.
But like, yeah, just this crazy story. I still can't believe it sometimes.
Okay, so like hopefully anyone that listens to this episode, hopefully they don't listen to just the end because I can bet you, if someone only listens to this part, they are never going to do real estate. It's like hell no, hell no. Like all the wrong things happened, but
Yeah.
I think it also goes to show, and maybe it speaks to the mindset thing that you said earlier, which is like what made the deal work was less about the hand that was given to you, but was more around how you took that and responded to it.
Mm.
Because the truth is, like everything you said happened like either at the wrong time or like was just plain wrong. Like the
Yeah.
fact that was when the market was about to turn, like holding costs higher, holding period longer, rental budget higher, sale price lower, comps wrong, like a lot of things that would typically just make this like go south,
Yeah.
happened, right? But the fact that you took 2 to 3 months consistently trying to find a way, I think that alone just speaks to like everything you've been saying here, because I would say 9 out of 10 people wouldn't do that. Like calling the city is actually very annoying. Like at least for me, like it's actually very annoying. So to call the city, get to a point where they tell you, I even forgot that their records actually got washed away. Like the story is just, But you know what? Like I'm now thinking, if the records didn't get washed away, then would would it have been a duplex? It wouldn't, right? Because they would then have the record saying it wasn't a duplex. Or
That's a good question. We just created our own records.
exactly, man. Because the truth is, like, you did what you did because of the absence of their own record. So now you
Yeah.
forced them to create, this situation where they're like, you know what? Now you have to prove to us. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Now I can prove to you. Now, how do you want me to prove to you? They give you a requirement. Boom, you met it. It took you 2 to 3 months, but you met it. But if those records were there, maybe you wouldn't even have the chance. So
It would have
thank
been
the
a bigger.
flood.
It would have been a bigger L.
It would have been a big eye. Also, thank the flood. The flood in Cambridge helped you, man. That's what got you a deal about the finish line. That flood in Cambridge that washed away the documents. Oh man, it's so hilarious. Okay, man. Thank you very, very much, Sebastian. Like this has been beyond phenomenal, and I know anyone who's listening to this, bro, that are going to be downloading this and burning up the download chat. So it's exciting that you've come on here. Thank you very much. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
I think the best place will be on Facebook or Instagram under Sebastian and then Jan. So on Facebook, you'll be able to find me there. And I think if you look up Sebastian J as well on Instagram, you'll find me there too.
Okay.
Always happy to help in any way I can. If people are looking for off-market deals as well, they can go to janiagroup.com. That's JANIA group.com. And always happy to help.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very, very much, Sebastian. That's it, folks. Thanks for listening to the Deals Estate Wholesaling podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on Apple, Google, Spotify, your favorite podcast channels, and be sure to hit the subscribe and notification button so that you know when this episode with Sebastian drops and when the next one drops. So until then, remember, a deal a day keeps scarcity at bay.
Love it.